Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Cantey, and this is another episode of Living Enlightened Every Day. Last week, we talked about the ancient wisdom of the law of attraction, and I shared some insights I have had around this subject, but I didn't really get to the question, how do we successfully use the law of attraction to live enlightened every day? How do we use it to attract the things we really want and need and desire? Today, we're going to explore this question with my very special guest, Troy Ismir. If you like this, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button, and, share it with a friend. So, how do we successfully use the law of attraction to live enlightened and to attract what we want, need, and desire to live a fulfilling and passionate life? We're going to look at the practical applications of the law of attraction and share how it works in our lives. And we're going to explore this question with my special guest, Troy Ismir. Troy is an inner transformation coach and certified Holden Qigong instructor who helps men realize their true power, integrating spirit, mind, and body so they can live a life of unlimited freedom. And, well, he's my significant other.
Which is the most important part of all this, right?
Right.
Right.
So last week he heard me, of course, talk about Mathew, the scripture from the Christian New Testament, Matthew 6:25 through 34, I think. And the ending to that scripture that we discussed last week was, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. And we discussed at length that scripture and what it meant to me. And we kind of, I looked at it a little bit from the Buddhist point of view. We introduced some other ideas, the metaphysical ideas of what all the meanings were. So if you missed that, go check that out. But today we're going to talk about that idea of how it really works, seeking first the kingdom. And what I really explained last week was, for me growing up, and maybe for you too, is that the kingdom of heaven was not a place I really wanted to seek, because it sounded like, white and fluffy with angels up in the sky. And you're not going to have ketchup and mustard and hot dogs and rock and roll. I'm just saying, so it just didn't make sense to me for a long time. But now we understand that the kingdom of heaven is that our natural state of being, when we let go of the past conditioning, when we let go of the thoughts of lack or limitation, the thoughts that we're not good enough, or we can't have, or we have to work hard, all those things, when we let them go, what's left? And it, for me, is that peaceful, natural state, the spaciousness that is the kingdom of heaven within. It is what I call enlightenment. And I discuss that at length in my book, Living Enlightened, the Joy of Integrating Spirit, Mind, and Body. And so I know that Troy and I actually met. Both of us really believe that that's what we were practicing at the time that we met. So one of our biggest adventures has been practicing the law of attraction by being how we are, and not wanting relationship, not needing, not fixating on it, but being in that space of who we want to be in relationship. And I think you can talk about that.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey of how I got here. And I don't know if you ever ask yourself, how did I get here from there?
Yep.
And how did we meet? And it's really through this law of attraction, and it's how we met. And it's how I ended up here is has been quite a journey, and I think it goes back to what you said in that scripture is seek first the kingdom of heaven, and I had no idea what that meant from I guess a metaphysical perspective. And I was raised in a very conservative Christian home. My dad was a Lutheran pastor, and
Mm.
yes, the kingdom of heaven was something up there,
Yeah,
out there, that we had to be good to get to. And that's what this whole life was about until I started to look at some other things that were more aligned with what my truth was. And really it started for me is finding this kingdom of heaven in here.
within.
Yeah, within here. So really the law of attraction to me starts out with finding this inner peace and happiness within, which is the kingdom of heaven. And I didn't do very well for most of my life. And I'm just kind of figuring that out now, of that kingdom of heaven is always here. And that's why we have
Mm,
to seek it first. And then everything else will be added unto it when we have this righteousness, which is a state of mind. And that's something that when I went on my journey of leaving Colorado, I sold all my belongings and I went on what I call this divine adventure, which was external travel, but it really was representative of the internal journey that I went on to really discover the kingdom of heaven within me,
within.
and just followed my heart, and it led me to you. There's a lot more behind that story, and I'd love to share it when we're ready to share that. But it's really about becoming the person that we want to attract first and foremost. And I have a list of what was really important for me to become so I could attract somebody like yourself and be like-minded, which was just like, how am I going to meet somebody in Jacksonville, Florida? And how did I end up in, I guess,
How'd you
Jacksonville,
end up
Florida?
in
Yeah, it's
Jacksonville,
just,
Florida?
it's a crazy story, but it's
Well, let me interrupt because the first thing that you said that I wanted to talk about was this idea that most of us, when we seek the kingdom of heaven, when we're seeking happiness, we're seeking joy, we're seeking fulfillment in our careers, we're looking outside. We want that one person to make us happy. We want the promotion to make us
right.
happy. We want the retirement to make us happy. Whatever it is, and we're searching outside of ourselves, and we keep a lot of times we're taught in this world, if you work hard or if you find the right person, all of these things, then our joy or our peace, our fulfillment, our happiness will be added then. But what we've come to find out is that inward journey. But it's so interesting that you took a, a giant external journey, but you knew that it was mimicking,
Yeah.
or that's not a good word, but it was inspired. Your external journey was really a symbol of what was going on inside.
Well, it was basically based on what I was doing wasn't working, and I guess I got the message enough, like, hey, it's kind of like beating your head up against the wall, but keep going back to the wall and just getting your head up against the wall. And I was just like, okay, this is not working in my life. I'm looking for something outside of myself to make me happy, and a lot of it was based around relationships, like.
Yeah.
And it was so forced, like, I was trying to force things that weren't working, and, finally, I got the message, "Let's try something different," and I stopped doing the online dating. I've been divorced for quite a few years, but I was seeking this relationship to make me feel whole and complete, and
Mm.
I was very needy, and I really was, and I was like, "Okay, it's time to find the happiness on my own," and that's what the law of attraction is being so fulfilled and so whole that just anything that comes is kind of a bonus on top of that. And when I met you, I was so happy and fulfilled, and meeting you is just added to that joy and happiness that I already have felt in my life. And I had to go on that journey to really experience that. and to meet you, and based on everything that I was looking for in a life partner, has been pretty amazing. And I was very clear on the type of person that I wanted to attract. And I wrote a list, and a lot of this, it was based on Joe Dispenza's work and just how we attract and manifest things in our lives. So it's really setting a clear intention and then having that elevated emotion that goes along with it and seeing it as already done. And I did. And I just kind of let it go. I let it just send it out to the universe and just was doing my own thing and doing my own inner work. I was seeking the kingdom of heaven first.
And for you, just we're going to go back because you said a couple of really important things, but for you, the seeking the kingdom of heaven, what do you do? Because I mean, I know what you do, but you can tell them.
Do?
I don't know.
Okay.
Meditation, a little qigong, a little centering. I mean,
Yeah.
and these are we talked a little bit last week about withdrawing our attention from the world of effects, really turning within. And that's another scripture is Jesus saying to enter the closet, your closet, close the door, just to really close your eyes, close the ears in a way, just to really be with what is within. And I know that you practice meditation and a breathing and movement meditation.
Yeah, I have several practices, but I think the first thing for me that I had to do when I went on this journey was let go of this past conditioning, especially around religion and this conservative Christian upbringing. That's all I knew, and I allowed myself to explore Buddhism and Hinduism and the Tao Te Ching. And so I gave my freedom to explore who I truly am without any past conditioning influencing that. So I had to really discover my own truth. And that's what it started. And I used these practices, Qigong and meditation, to really get back to my true nature of, of love and joy and peace and happiness. And so part of this journey that I went on was allowing myself to explore. So that actually was part of my practice. Like, I'm just going to explore the truth of who I am from a spiritual standpoint instead of body image. And it's still like this overcoming. So I had to unpack a lot for my trip. That's why I sold a lot of stuff. So again, it was a metaphor for letting go. And then I utilize these practices, which I kind of stumbled across Qigong, which is really this ancient practice of moving meditation. It's finding this stillness and movement. And you know me, I'm kind of been a chronic thinker of overanalyzing. So what I'm learning to do is really slowing my mind down and just allowing the spirit to flow through me. And Qigong is a beautiful practice to do that. And just moving and just allowing my body to move in a way. I'm a very kinesthetic person, but my mind gets in the way of that, just that natural feeling of the way my body wants to move. And yeah, and that's one of my struggles on the golf course, which is one of my passions, that I'm learning just to get out of my own way. And all these practices help me to get out of my own way so I can show up truly as who I am. And I think that's really what this life is about, is getting back to our true nature and then attracting from that standpoint. And when I was thinking about who do I want to meet and kind of letting go of the online dating, and one of the things I say is that I didn't want a match made from match, which is kind of, I'll call that, no, I won't say it. I wanted a match made in heaven,
Well, the kingdom of heaven.
the kingdom of heaven, letting the universe, knowing more than I do of who the right person is for me. And when I completely let that go, I think it was probably about a year from this time of just, I'm just going to let this go, find this happiness on my own. And that's when you just kind of out of nowhere, unexpectedly showed up in my life.
Wait, you showed up out of nowhere. in my life.
Yes, true. That too. In both ways. It just was like, I don't know. And I just kept following my heart. I kept following my spiritual path. And how we actually met is you were leading Center for Spiritual Living Jacksonville, meeting online at the time. And it was just something that I was very intrigued about. I was on this inner spiritual path and looking for places in Jacksonville where I could connect to a community spiritually. And I jumped on to the online service that you were leading, and just your message was powerful. And I thought you were kind of hot. So, like a hot minister, that's amazing. And just we have so much in common.
Thank you, honey.
You're welcome, spiritually. And that was one of the things, and actually the most important thing, the first thing that I put down is that we're both on this journey of spiritual growth. And that was the number one thing on my list of being intentional. And I would, when we're ready, I would love to
Well,
share that list, because I think it's really important to be clear on, and that's how I do it. I think you do it a little bit differently, but I'm always kind of into lists and and journaling and writing things down, and it doesn't work for everybody. But for me, being really clear on what I wanted to manifest and attract, and who I needed to become, and how I needed to see myself was really, really important.
well, and just what you just said, that is that idea, going back to the scripture that we talked about,
Mhm.
of seeking first the kingdom, really that state of being, the natural state of who we are, which is that eternal, unlimited peace, love, joy, harmony, and that alignment is his righteousness. Seek first his kingdom and his
Mhm.
righteousness. And it's that right thinking, that alignment. And as you can hear, I hope that that's what Troy was really doing, and it was something very different than you had done
Mhm.
before. And yes, I think it's whatever works for people as far as how specific we want to be. Jesus said, ask and it shall be given.
Mhm.
And that kind of, we can take that to mean be specific,
Mhm.
or that other idea is um to seek first the kingdom, and in that state of alignment, what we know the Father, that was from that passage last week, was the Father, the Creator, already knows your needs. So I'm more in that, like, I'll just spend the time in the kingdom of heaven, knowing that I know what I need or want and desire, but I don't necessarily make a list, but I love the people that do.
Mhm.
And so I think it's very powerful that you created a list, and kind of knew that you had. That's the other point.
Right.
You had to
Yeah.
be an example of that list. How can you attract that which you are not?
Right.
Like.
Yeah, and I think that list was more for me. Of like, okay, I need to step it up. I need to
Mhm.
really be this person, and not only be it, but see myself that way. And because we can talk about it, we can think about it, we can read until we're blue in the face, we can do all these practices, but until we believe it and feel it in our heart, and then a lot of it comes down to worthiness, like
Yeah.
feeling worthy of attracting somebody that is just amazing. And what I did is I would kind of like, I was a rescuer, so I would rescue somebody that I needed to be needed,
Mm.
and as opposed to somebody's already whole and fulfilled on their own. So I needed to be whole and fulfilled on my own in order to make this relationship work over the long term. So that's really the list, I think, was more for clarity of, okay, this is who I am becoming. This is who I am. What do I need to do on this spiritual path to, again, let go of all these false notions that I've picked up over my years of life, I guess would be the best way to say it. But
Yeah, past conditioning.
and
Yeah,
it's
sure.
honestly, it's fun. It's like, it's really, when we allow ourselves to dream and manifest, it gets to be fun as compared to like dating can be a lot of work. And there was a point like, why am I doing this? It's exhausting, number one. It's frustrating, number two. It felt very forced. And I think when we're manifesting from a place of wholeness, it's actually fun. Like, okay, how is this gonna happen? This is like, I don't know, but I could feel that you were right around the corner because I don't know, there was something about I could just sense this that I don't know how, but I just felt like it was closer. Maybe because I could just feel this sense in myself that I was so alive and so happy and not,
Present.
yeah, and present, not needing a relationship. And I guess one thing that I reflect back on, walking on the beach with my dog Oakley, and I would see people, couples holding hands, and I thought, gosh, that's amazing. And I just saw myself holding my significant other's hand, not from a place of lack, but a place of this is what it feels like
To share that
to
with
share
somebody.
that with somebody. And I could feel it. But the difference was it wasn't from a place of, oh gosh, I need this to be happy. It was from a place of, wow, this feels amazing. And it's going to be great when I'm able to share this with somebody and say, hey, look at that sunrise or sunset, or look at the dolphins that are playing
Hmm.
together. And, I did that with Oakley, my dog, but she doesn't talk a whole lot. So, yeah,
She's a good
she's
puppy.
a good puppy. So, anyways, but yeah, it's
Well,
it's
and
it's
that's
fun.
just to before you read your list, just I because so it is pretty amazing when we are able to have these. Were then and we still do have the conversation because at the exact same time
Mm,
I was doing a mini workshop with Dennis Merritt Jones, who I had on I think 2 weeks ago on the
mm,
podcast,
mhm,
and I had some prayer partners and they were asking, what do you want prayer for?
mm,
And I was in such a state. My son, I thought I was an empty nester before, but my son was in college
mm,
and kept coming home.
mm,
And then when I bought a condo, fixed it up, and now he and his friends pay rent. So
mm.
he will. It was the sad part was he will never have to come home if he doesn't want to. But here I was, an empty nester, and it just felt like everything was about to start again. And
Mm,
I loved being in an
yeah.
empty, spacious place of
Mm,
not knowing.
mm,
And there was room for a relationship, and there was room for for me travel and this idea of just kind of shedding an old
mm,
skin, shedding being a full-time mom into being, a mom with a college student. It was
mm,
just very, very different and an empty nester. And so I reflect back on the space I was in, and
mm,
it was that kingdom of heaven. It was just I said to my prayer partners, I just want to be in the state of allowing. If you
mm,
can see me in
mm,
that flow state,
mm.
and they were like, "Yeah, that's easy. We see you. We see you flowing." Yeah, and that's what I felt like.
Yeah, and I think that's something to really pay attention to is this it should feel effortless and should be fun.
Yeah.
And I love what you say is just this open space. It's creating space in our lives for something new and just being open to what is. And that's a beautiful way to live life. And I guess that's what I'm learning to do in every area of my life. But when I see the law of attraction working, because it is a law, and sometimes like, oh yeah, that's great for somebody else, and you hear the stories, but when I really reflect back on, that's how we met,
Hmm.
and it is a match made in heaven. So if we can do it from a relationship standpoint, we can do it from travel and financial, and there's no limit because we are unlimited because we're doing it based on the truth of who we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can I read my list now?
Yes.
I think this is just amazing. This is fun. I think I wrote this list down right before I went on my travel adventure. So I was in Colorado and I was working virtually. And I just made a choice that I was going to leave Colorado. I had some general plan of where I was going to go. So I went to New Mexico, explored other parts of Colorado. I was getting Airbnbs for a month at a time. So this was probably written maybe a year and a half ago. Is when manifesting a spiritual companion and romantic partner. I wanted both. I didn't want one or the other. So that's what was really important to me. So a spiritual companion where we each raise each other's level of consciousness, where spiritual and God communion is the first priority. That was number one for me. Second, had to be beautiful inside and outside. So you can see the outer beauty. I get to see the inner beauty, and obviously the way she speaks, you can tell the inner beauty that shines through. That was really important. We raise each other's level of Christ consciousness. And I didn't know this was a thing, but Elizabeth has a PhD in consciousness. So be careful what you ask for, because she has definitely raised my level of consciousness. Sometimes when I don't want it to be raised, I get a little,
Be careful
I
what
get
you
a
ask
little
for.
pissed off. And my favorite saying is, "The truth will set you free, but at first it will piss you off." But
Sometimes.
when you're having your level of
Mhm.
consciousness being raised and you're caught up in the ego, which I have been quite a bit, it can be a little frustrating. Um, but it's been actually a beautiful thing. And she has raised my level of Christ consciousness. A great peer listener, somebody that listens to me and understands me, somebody who's athletic, fit, and healthy. And we share a vegan diet together. And a lot of
Mhm.
our time spent is in the kitchen preparing healthy, nutritious vegan meals. So that's a beautiful thing to have in common. Travel the world together, and we're going to do a little adventure coming up here pretty soon,
Yeah.
and we'll get a chance to explore parts of the country together with our two dogs. And so we're going to be traveling parts of the world together. I wanted somebody that was spiritual but not religious, and definitely inner spiritual, as you hear talk about. I remember hearing one of your first talks on Center for Spiritual Living, and you brought up Judaism, Hinduism, Sufism, Taoism, Christianity, mysticism. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just like, that was amazing. That's mind blowing. So that was cool. She's doing deep inner work as I've been doing deep inner work. You've been doing it for a long time, and
Yeah, a long time.
another thing that was important, that my life partner was my equal and teaches me by example. And that's one thing Elizabeth does a wonderful job. I just get to watch and observe how she shows up in her life with her family, and she practices what she preaches. She just exudes love, and she's just open to all people, and it's amazing. And I just get to watch that. And here's this one's kind of an inside one, but she's a Division 1 player, and this is one thing that I worked on with my coach, seeing myself as Division 1 instead of Division 3. Not that there's anything wrong with Division 3.
These are sports terms.
Sports terms, college football, whatever sports, D1, D3, and the highest level is D1, Division 1. And that's how I needed to see myself to attract somebody who was
Yeah.
Division 1, and somebody who's a great encourager to me. And kind of a fun thing that we do pretty regularly is we randomly put sticky notes up that have encouraging words on them, that sometimes we don't always verbalize it, or I don't always verbalize it as much as I could. So putting sticky notes out on the coffee maker before I go for a bike ride, and then I'll come back to some random notes that are kind of fun. And so that's been really powerful to see. And then
Encouraging.
the elevated emotions that I was experiencing before you came to show up were just gratitude that I get to live this life, and that I get to travel. So this fulfillment on my own, it was appreciation for life,
Mhm.
for my dog, for my family, for my kids. So I was already appreciating uh, the places I got to see when I was traveling, the sunsets in Santa Fe, and went cycling in the Colorado National Monument. I was in deep appreciation for my life before I met you. I was committed to personal growth. passion for life. I know you talk about, just having this zest and passion for life, joy,
Loving life. Yeah.
joy, and just coming from a place of pure love for myself and for the person that was going to show up in my life. And it's not been perfect since we've met, but it's been
Wait, what?
amazing. It's been amazing since we met. And without this law of attraction and becoming the person that I wanted to attract, seeing it as already done, you would be doing this podcast without. Sorry.
Well, the last step you mentioned, I don't know if you guys caught that, he was talking about the emotions, the elevated emotions, along with those qualities that he was looking for. It was how you felt
Mhm.
when you knew that that was available to you out of all the infinite possibilities, that when you could envision this life partner, this
Mhm.
life with a partner like that, it made you feel these things. And we talked about that last
Yeah.
week as well, is the way that we know it is done, as Jesus would say, is as you believe, then it is done. And when you believe that it's done, when you're standing in the kingdom of heaven, or that space of enlightenment, that natural state of being where you feel whole and one and complete already, then it's easy to imagine, I think
Mm.
you were saying, like, that someone would reflect that back to you.
Mhm.
It's easy to imagine in a world of infinite possibility that there's someone to reflect this love and this peace and this joy and this sense of adventure back to you. And how does that make you feel? And you mentioned one of the most amazing feelings is gratitude.
Mm.
It's really that sense of it is done, yes. And then you also mentioned letting it go. And
Yeah.
so you're not once again, you're not fixating. Once you're in the kingdom of heaven and you've um, kind of written your list and you felt the feelings, you might go back to it once or twice,
Mhm.
couple as many times as you want during the day. But it is, if you're coming from the place of I've got to do this again, I've got to make this happen again, then we're missing the point a little bit. Because as we talked about last week, we don't make laws happen. We abide by the laws and know that it is happening. It's already done. It's like you plant a seed into the ground and you can't keep digging it up to see if it's rooted or not. You're going to destroy it. It will not root under those
Mhm.
conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And my work is with men as an inner transformation coach, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges I've faced. And the men I work with is trying to make things happen and forcing things when we know they're not working. So it's I think this allowing, this art of allowing and letting go, and just it's more of this, we'll call it yin energy or
Yeah.
divine feminine energy of just being being open, this open space that you talked about. And I was like, we got to make this happen, and it's just trying. And I'm learning, as we speak, just to be in that energy more and more instead of forcing. And when it's exhausting, we kind of know that trying to force instead of this art of allowing and being open to receive and knowing that we're worthy and it's already done. It's that simple and yet that challenging because it's ingrained in us that we got to go out and make things happen. And I didn't make things happen with you. I just allowed it to be. Even, when we met through the online community of Center for Spiritual Living, I still didn't know if or how we were going to meet or anything about that. I just like, okay, if we're supposed to meet, it'll happen. If not, then it's okay. And that's just the way it's going to be. And just trusting that process. And that is a cool place to be because
Yeah.
it's peaceful and it's joyful.
And when we think about all those things that we really want in our lives,
Mhm.
whether it's the relationship or financial abundance or more, more of anything in those ways, any kind of relationship with our family, our friends, or looking for the partnership, it's we want those things because we think it will make us happy. And so
mm,
when we can be happy,
mm,
we begin to attract those things.
mm,
And instead of that thing, the promotion or the person making us happy, we get to share that happiness that we've been feeling, that
mm,
gratitude, that excitement that we've been feeling in this state of allowing
mm,
with that person. And then that creates a really awesome bond because it isn't needy. It isn't
mm.
someone needing something from you, which
Right.
is exhausting.
It is.
You
It
know,
doesn't work.
I mean, we've all had what puppies, and some people have had toddlers, and it's the
Yeah,
same thing. You know,
yeah,
they're pretty needy there for
yeah.
a while, and it's exhausting. Of course, the love is ridiculous. That's why we do it.
Mm,
But it's in adult relationships, to come from that place of wholeness
mm,
and that place of being excited about who we are,
mhm,
so we can share that.
mhm.
That's a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah, I think for me, it was this commitment to myself that I was going to find joy and happiness on my own, no matter what, whether I'm single for the rest of my life
Yeah.
or somebody amazing comes in. It was just a really, there was just a point where I just made this choice like, okay, I'm going to choose to be happy, whether there's somebody comes along or not, because I don't want to spend the rest of my life from this place of lack or needing somebody to
Wanting,
fulfill
needing.
me. And I've really taken a look at these other areas that I'm working on manifesting. Is there blocks that are keeping me from attracting uh, financial abundance? And because obviously the law of attraction works, so why doubt in other areas? And that's kind of the work that I'm doing now, that we're doing from a like the sky's the limit. And once we see that, um, in a relationship, and as I mentioned, finances or whatever we want to manifest. And I think that's the work that we're doing now, because there's always another level.
Spirit is always expanding in
Mm,
its expression as us. Spirit in and of itself is divine, whole, perfect, and complete. But as
mm,
us, we're always expanding and growing and changing and moving. And we have a dynamic, I think. And if we're not, that's stagnation.
mm,
It's dying. It's
yeah,
literally moving backwards. I think entropy, whatever those words are, it's
mm,
it's it's dying. And it's not about age. It's about, um, I feel like it's about energy and ideas and expansion.
mm,
And as we become and choose to become a greater expression of that divine energy that we are,
mm,
and find another level, another um, way of expressing, let's say, it's a creative process.
mm,
It's it's what's next. It's like, gosh, I was a mom for 19 years, with my son at home, and
mm,
it was constant, and I was a single mom, full-time single mom. And so when that it's like, oh, big change is coming, for me to have to hold on to that, as I guess some people or parents do, to hold on to that, not let the children
yeah,
leave, hold on to the role of mother or this or that, or want to be needed. But for
mm,
me, it was just like, wow, I get to step into something new that I don't even know what it is yet.
mm,
And it was exciting, but it was uh, not known. It was not known. And the
yeah,
law of attraction is always working. And
mm,
so we don't know that it's always
mm,
working, but what I get to tell my clients is, when a lot of people say, well, it's not working for me.
mm,
I'm like, well, we can just look at your life, and I
mm,
can look at my life. And this
mm,
is what you were saying. We
yeah,
can just look at any area, and we can see, am I limited in that area? And then we can literally just say, what are my beliefs about this, about
right,
how I can earn money, how money has to come to me,
mm,
what I'm able, to do, what I'm not able to do.
right.
And we find our limiting beliefs.
Yeah, and I think one thing you said is this willingness to go into the unknown, this willingness to take chances. And that's one thing that I did is probably 5 years ago, I quit a six-figure job and started my own business. And then I moved to Colorado, and then I sold all my stuff and start it. Not that you have to do all that, but I think the point is you have to be willing to go into the unknown of, because if we keep doing the same things over and over, and Joe Dispenza talks about that a lot, nothing is going to change in our life. So it's really changing our thinking first and foremost, but just sometimes just some changes of willingness to do something different, and then just see what happens and what shows up in our lives. And again, it gets to be fun. I just call it the divine adventure, whether you
Mm,
choose to travel or not travel. But so a couple things that I envisioned were, it was the beaches and mountains, to be able to enjoy the beaches. I don't like cold weather anymore, growing up in North Dakota. So living in Colorado for 4 years, like, yeah, I don't really like the cold, but I sure love the summers
yeah.
in Colorado. So why not have both? And I'm seeing that come to fruition. Another thing is I wanted to be within walking distance to the beach, and just happens to be that where we're at, we're within walking distance to the beach. And just, we'll call it little things like that, but it's like the universe is really listening to our thoughts. And be careful what you think, because your thoughts run your life. Be careful what you think. It's really
Yeah.
true, because you said the law of attraction is always working. So,
And thought with that emotional,
mm, yeah,
the elevated emotion. And it is always working. And we can just look at our life and see where we think it isn't working, it's actually still working,
mm,
but it's our limited beliefs that are keeping our situation limited,
right,
I think. So,
yeah,
and the unknown, I wanted, because you said step into the unknown.
mm,
And to me, that is that empty,
yeah,
spacious, sky of enlightenment. It's the
mm,
kingdom of heaven. It's where all that there is, but it isn't known. It's
mm,
it it's not man. It's no thing, as the Buddhists would
mm,
say. It's just beingness. And most people are kind of uncomfortable in that state. But when you
mm,
meditate and you get to that place where you're in that empty, spacious, open space, when we kind of come out of that meditation or out of that moment, that's for me when I feel like answers or movement happens. Like I'm
mm,
guided to make a
yeah,
phone call, or like you were guided to search for online, or at that time, online communities,
mhm.
spiritual communities in Jacksonville, because you were going to the Buddhist Center.
Yeah, I allowed myself to explore Buddhism, and I went to a weekly meditation, which was beautiful. But I also felt there was something missing from a standpoint. That's when I started to do a little more research to see what was out there, and just was open to, okay, I don't know what Center for Spiritual Living is, but it seems pretty cool. And then I jumped online, and it was a small but powerful group. I'm like, oh, all of a sudden people are asking me questions. I'm like, I was just kind of thinking I would just be in the
Watch.
background and watch, and not have to be asked questions. But it was
We do dialogue.
but it was it was an amazing group. And we just had our dinner with one of the other practitioners, and it's just, and open up my eyes to new thoughts, and just so many things. And if I wouldn't have gone on to Center for Spiritual Living, I don't know. It was that unknown, and sometimes it's like it's a little scary. Okay, I'm getting ready to click the Zoom link that enters you into the Zoom meeting, and you got the adrenaline flowing a little bit. There's a little bit of fear, because there's this unknown.
Unknown.
I'm like, okay, to press or not to press? That is the question. And I'm like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? So I pressed the button, and
Change your life.
it changed my life. It did. And without that, taking a chance, going into the unknown, because we do have to, we're led, but we also do have to take some action. And I did follow the link, and we did meet in person. So there is some effort that needs to happen, but it's inspired from a place
That's
of
the
wholeness, and that's
yeah.
the difference. And so often we're just controlled by fear, or what ifs, or this anxiety. And if we're living that way, then the unknown can't really manifest in our lives. So it doesn't mean they're all going to turn out, but they're all going to turn out in a way that we need to learn from. And you always talk about it, everything is for our greater good if we're just open to what is and just allowing to it to be what it is without judgment. I think that's the beautiful place to live, that place that I'm learning to be in more and more, and that's really powerful.
Yeah, it's that inspired action that is always unfolding for our highest good.
Mm.
And that doesn't mean that uninspired action, that doing where we
Mm.
just feel like we have to force things to happen, that's most of us grow up with this sort of Puritan work ethic that,
Mm.
work hard and you'll make something of
Yeah.
yourself. And then you spend 40 years working hard wondering what happened. I'm not happy, I'm unhealthy, I don't
Mm.
have what I thought I wanted, all these things. So it's that being, and then that space of allowing for that divine intuition, and then the inspired doing, for
Mm.
sure.
Mhm.
It's all working, and as we listen, I think we get more and more attuned to that small, still voice
Mm.
within, and we can filter out, the ego voice that says you didn't do it right, or you need to do more, or you haven't done enough, those things. And we can just stay with the inspired voice. And that's a practice too. It's just looking at what the result was.
Mm.
Did it match up with our expectation, and did we follow through with the inspired action, and were we in that kingdom of
Mm.
heaven
Yeah.
to begin with, to open up
Yeah, it's being in alignment with the truth
a
of who
lot.
we are, right? Alignment with spirit and vibrating at our highest energy of love, joy, and power, freedom. The more we're in that state of being, the more amazing things happen. And the world wants to pull us into these other directions of victim, anger, lack, comparison, all these things.
Hmm.
And it's I've gotten really good at doing it in my meditation time. And now, as your book is living enlightened, every day, in every moment, can we see the truth of who we are? Whether we have a bad day on the golf course or not, we're still in this state of joy and happiness and peace, because that's not our identity. Our true nature is love, and that's kind of what's unfolding in my life as I'm on this journey of what does it mean to live enlightened every single day. And that's what your podcast is all about. It's not just in the meditation time. Life is meditation, and I would be a great monk.
Me too.
But I'm in the world, and that's what I'm learning to do is how do we do this? And catching when that ego gets in our mind and just says you're not enough, or doing a qigong practice, and the voice says, "Well, that's stupid. What are you doing this for? You need to go lift weights so you can get bigger and stuff like that." And it's there, but it's happened. The voice
It's
is
less.
less and less and less as I step into this truth of who I am, and having you to help me see some of the blinders that I have on. And I haven't always been real receptive to hearing it in the moment, but when I step back and reflect and go into my meditation, it's like, yeah, that's how I raise my consciousness.
Hmm.
And that's what's been beautiful about our relationship is we've been able to mirror back some things and to help each other grow. And I think that's what makes a beautiful relationship is this spiritual growth that we're both on and inspiring each other. And it's again, it's fun and can be challenging in certain ways, but it's all awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so what is the one thing that has really maybe stood out for you on this journey of the law of attraction?
Yeah, and this may be the obvious answer, but it's so true, and sometimes it can be so challenging. Is just finding this fulfillment, love, passion for ourselves, unconditional love for
Mm.
ourselves, and then just kind of the whole world just unfolds from that place. So it's finding happiness on our own, no matter what is going on in our life, not needing anything outside of ourselves to be fully fulfilled, enjoying life, feeling fully alive. And that's it. And then everything else that comes to us is just icing on the cake. It's just like it's added to. Seek first the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven, and everything will be added. And that's it.
Yeah, well, if I was going to answer that question, that would be exactly it.
Ditto.
Ditto. Because that's that idea that we're not taught, we're not told, we're even in our religions that we grew up with, it wasn't that if you really we are able as divine emanations of spirit itself to be happy all of the time, regardless of our situations. And there's been some tough situations. And I wouldn't use the word happy in all of that. Sometimes just in peace or in harmony, or just sometimes just in allowing. That's really all we can do, is just not resist. I'll say, if it was some of the toughest situations. But in other situations, knowing that we can be at peace or in joy or in harmony, in flow, and that is the answer we're actually seeking. When we think it's a relationship, we think it's the promotion, we think it's the extra money or the tropical vacation, but it's that we think it'll make us happy. Well, we could just be happy right now.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And then when we're happy right now, those things come. Those things come. They have to. Just more and more come to acknowledge, to reflect back to us our happiness or our joy or our peace or our clarity. All of those things, are added to us. Yeah, same thing.
Beautiful.
I could have just said ditto.
Ditto.
So I just invite you to take a moment to see where you are in this ultimate law of attraction, if this made sense to you, and let me know how you're going to change your life with this understanding, or how you have changed your life, like what has happened with us, how the law of attraction has already worked for you. If you would like to reach out to Troy, his website is troyismir.com. That's TroyIsmir.com. He is an inner transformation coach and certified Qigong instructor. He does much of his coaching work online, and you'll find a lot more information at his website. And my book, Living Enlightened, The Joy of Integrating Spirit, Mind, and Body, is available on Amazon if you'd like to learn more. The link to his website and my book is listed below or in the notes. And I'd love to hear from you, a comment, a review. You can learn more at elizabethcantey.com. I'm always excited to help people integrate spirit, mind, and body in order to live every day with that deep sense of fulfillment and passion and purpose. Thank you again for joining us. I'm Elizabeth Cantey. This is Living Enlightened Everyday. Join me every week for a new insight into how we can love our life and live our passion every day. Be sure and hit like if you liked it, subscribe, and share it with a friend. Remember to laugh, love, and live enlightened every day.